when you look at elite amateurs now, is there like a common fueling mistake you see them making?
Probably not. Yeah, probably go on one end of the spectrum in that they don't eat enough or they think they can eat more. They read like an article on Tour de France, something on social media, and it's like, oh, Pogacar consumes, I'm not, don't quote, like this isn't an actual quote, but like 150 grams of carbs an hour. It's like, that's what I should be doing. And you're
Yeah.
like, yeah, well, there's a reason to a certain degree they are able to do that. They are freaks of nature. Like people have different absorption capacities and there's different, there's different, they've been doing that for years as well. But they might think then like, oh, I should be doing that. And then throws in 150 grams of carbs an hour, spends for it on gels and or whatever product you want. And then, particularly if they're trying to lose weight, they're wondering why they're not trying to lose weight because they're eating so much. So you have that end of the spectrum where they have too much and they might hurt their stomach. The ability to absorb that is, for anyone who doesn't know, is ridiculous. Or then you have people who like, well, I'll just go out, I'll eat a slice of toast beforehand, and I'll stop for a coffee, which, you know, is natural in cycling, coffee and cake, which is
Yeah.
fine. So I think that's the big difference. You've two ends of the spectrum. Rarely do they, I think, do they get it absolutely right. And in fairness, I don't blame people because even with the pro riders, we're um, trying to always find what their happy spot is as well. Because some people may be able to absorb more or tolerate more because it's hard on the gut. Your gut's going through so much when you're at a high intensity or even a moderate intensity
I
that
think
it's
this is
hard
one
to
of the
absorb that.
areas that doesn't scale, that absolute matters more than relative. You know, I know HEXIS is brilliant for this because you can throw your data into HEXIS and say, I'm going out, I'm going to do 3 hours at 250 watts, and it'll tell you how many grams per hour to eat. But if somebody wants to make that calculation themselves, just because 250 watts is or the numbers are probably higher for someone like Pogacar to continue that example.
Mm,
Pogacar's zone two is probably 280, 300 watts.
yeah.
If average Joe club cyclist is going out for a zone two ride at 150 watts, to make the maths easy, he's putting out 50% of the power Pogacar is, so he doesn't need to fuel the same amount that Pogacar does. But how do they make that calculation as to how many grams of carbohydrates they do need if they're going out for a ride at X intensity?
Yeah, I mean, I'd always start even with the guys when they're racing. It's like look at the overview of the day, and how much it might be. Like if you have an app based system or calculation, I'd always start on the basis of how much energy do they need throughout the whole day, because you don't want to go onto the bike in an underfueled state, and you need to be able to have a budget for like carbohydrates and calories after your race as well. So
Yeah.
you like mathematically, if you have a 4 or 5 hour ride and it's at a higher intensity, you're going to use more energy. If it's at a lower intensity, you're going to lose a lower amount of energy. So I would start 24 hour or 12 hour really when you're awake. You need a certain amount of carbohydrates before, a certain amount after, and then the rest of the budget goes a lot of time at simplest within that race period and tend to go from a lower up to a higher. So it's an increase approach throughout to support because if you get on the bike, you're going to have carbs in your system anyway. So you're, for the first hour, you might have 60 grams. The pros are probably a bit more, and then that might increase to support the duration and intensity of the ride. But what I would always, that's the way, it's like energy budget. I'd start at energy budget and then the demands of the race. If it's really, really hard, and it's an all out, even in the amateur or pro, because it's all relative to the person. Like what's really, really hard, a 9 or 10 on an RP scale for a amateur is going to be different for a pro. Do you know what I mean? So you're not going to be as efficient, and your utilization is going to be uh, different. So you might need more, relatively speaking, to that. So that's where I'd start, and then calculate how much then you have within the hour's budget.